welcome back to Badger's Adventures. It's been a hot day today and I've spent most of the day hiding from the weather, hiding from the heat. So this evening I'm going to head out and have a relatively lightweight overnighter. Work tomorrow morning, so I can't hang around really in the morning. Just get up, pack up and go. Quite local. Up there is a military firing range, but I'm not going into the range. I've got a little bit of woodland that I go in that's really not used at all, not maintained. There's a lot of ash dieback around here, which is a fungal infection which affects ash trees, and they're not really maintaining it in there. So you've got to be careful when you go in. Just look where you're going for ash trees, just keep away from those. And although there are quite a lot of ash trees, but anyway, so we're going to head off in there. I've got a funny little setup I'm going to use tonight, which might interest you as a hammock setup. Again, I find that I do about 75% of my wild camping is with a hammock, probably about 20% is with a bivvy and 5% with tents. I've got a couple of nice tents, but yeah, tents, most of it seems to be hammocking because I go into woodlands, because they're just cooler, more interesting, more nature, etc. Although I do like getting up onto some high ground with a hammock, with a bivvy or a tent. It's very pleasant, you know, on a lovely evening. But it's going to be very busy where I would normally go for that. So into the woods today. Right, so what I'm going to do is do probably a two-part video. I'll see how long it turns out to be, but a two-part video on wild camping in British woodlands with a hammock, and how I plan my trips and what I look for. Yeah, so just how I go about it. It's just so that if you're new to wild camping, you just want to have a look at how to do it, and you're in the UK, you can get a feel for the little hints and tricks that I use to plan my trips, to make them to de-risk them as much as possible. Okay, I've got some notes here which I might have to refer to occasionally, because just want to make sure I get all the points down that I can think of. So the first thing is, if you're going to wild camp in a wood, you should seek permission. I'm not going to go into the legal side of things at the moment. Hundreds of years ago, the land belonged to the people, and the king then decided it was all his, and he split it up and gave it to the lords and ladies, and they sold it on to other people over the years, and those people have rightly bought it with their own money. To me, there's an inherent right that all Englishmen have to roam the land, and unfortunately no one lets you roam the land. So there are public rights of way and there are permissive rights of way, and there are all sorts of other things. There are open access bits of land that the landowner has permitted people to use, and there are all sorts of legal bits and bobs like that. That's all great, but if it's not fenced off with barbed wire to stop me, if it doesn't have a sign telling me it's private keep out, if it has anything there that is clearly not wanting me to go in there, then I won't go in there. If it is anything to do with anyone's livelihood, then I'm not going to go in there and mess with their livelihood. If it's someone's property, you know, it's part of their garden, it's clearly part of their garden or something like that, then I clearly am not going to go in there. And if it's anything to do with nature that I could mess things up, then I'm not going to go in there either. So I follow those basic principles. It appears like there's access there. I will wander. If I get told to move on, then I'll move on. I will never cause a fuss, and I won't damage someone else's property. Sometimes I have a fire, okay? So that's the only thing I think I ever do. And occasionally I dig a cat hole, but I generally try and sort that out before I come out. But so that's how I play the game anyway. If you were on someone's land and they told you to move on, that would be trespass, and you've got to move on. That's a civil matter. If you refused, or if you damage their property, talk about that again in a second, then that becomes aggravated trespass, and you're liable for prosecution, because that now comes under criminal law, and now the police can get involved. So you just got to be careful how you do it. You've got to respect people's property, clearly, and the people are generally very open. And the only time I've ever really been challenged, the guy said, yeah, no problem, I just explained what I was doing, and he could see what I was. And it's when I first started, I wasn't really thinking about where I was choosing. And what you need to make sure that you do is that you follow the basic wild camping rules, and you'll find them online. Look them up. They're all obvious things: respecting other people, respecting the area that you're going into. Right then, so this is the public right of way. There's a nice little clearing through there. I'll go and have an explore through the woods, see what's out here. I know lots of people walk their dogs, not really here, but over in that section people walk their dogs, and yeah, I've got to be careful of ticks around here as well, because I know this area is heavily occupied by deer. This is a particularly old section of wood. It really doesn't get maintained, which is part of the an attraction for me, is that's the sort of place I tend to go for, really. Places that just people don't normally go, and where there is wildlife that I can quietly and respectfully watch. There's a bit of a game trail here, so I'll just follow that down. Right, yeah, so if you're going to go wild camp in the woodlands, you've got to plan something. Every time I've gone without a plan, I've messed up, probably only a couple of times. Yeah, lots of little flies buzzing around, which might be a problem later, as you'll find out from me. Yeah, I think I might just pitch up somewhere like this. The great thing about the summer is there's loads of cover, but the only path, like I say, is across over there. Now, in the other section, in the firing range, when it's not active, which it isn't at the moment, then lots of people walk around there with their dogs. So if you go too far down, you can end up bumping into them. A lot of the planning I do on Google Earth. If you're going to come into a woods, then look online for woodland walks. See where people talk about, find out where that wood is, and look at it on Google Earth. You don't have to look at those. Look at local woods also that are around you. And then I zoom in and I look at the sorts of trees I think are in the woods. And you can tell when you look at Google Earth where there are particularly tightly knit trees. They look really compact. Or you can look for conifers. Conifers stand out quite nicely. So I look for deciduous trees, as we're in at the moment, that don't seem too tightly packed, which can be hazel and stuff like that, which can be tricky. But I also look at the history side of Google Earth, because if you look historically back, if you can find a historic satellite image where it's been taken in the winter, you can see, because the evergreens, the conifers, will stand out, and you can see them, and you'll be able to see where the deciduous trees are. One of the little tricks that I use Google, I use Street View a lot. So once I've found a wood that I'm relatively interested in, I look at the terrain as well. Is it really steep, or is it relatively nice and flat? I look at, are any streams going through there? I also look at, are there any public footpaths that are going through? Because if there's a public footpath that goes through, it's easy access, and you've got a legit reason for wandering through there. So I've had a public footpath gone past there. I've just turned off the footpath for a little explore, got myself a little bit lost, and here we are. Now then, someone has been here. That's interesting. So I don't know exactly where in this old part of the wood I am, but it looks like it's a reasonably good option. I'll just need to check these trees, but I might put my hammock up there. I don't recognise this section. It is right next to the military range, which is just over there. There's the fence to it. So I know roughly where I am, but not entirely sure. I might mark this location because it looks pretty good. That's a good distance between the trees. It's a nice clear ground. Yeah, I'll probably go for this one. All right, other things. If there is some really big parking areas, you should have them on Street View. But if there are big parking areas, there are going to be lots of people. Lots of people equals chances of getting rumbled and dogs and everything else that just means you don't have a relaxing time. So I tend to avoid anything that's got a big car park. Yeah, trails. How many trails are there? If there are some Street View imagery where you can get people have taken a picture with a 3D camera, you can find out. And look at the photos on Google Earth as well, because they'll give you a clue about what's around. So I always look at the photos that people have taken, they've uploaded onto Google Earth, and you can get a very good idea for the sorts of trees that are there, how used the tracks and trails look. So that always gives me a good feel for what's going on. Other things I look for are farms and other buildings and things like that. If there are horses in fields nearby, then people are going to go and look after those horses in the evening and in the first thing in the morning. So maybe avoid those sorts of places. And if there's a farm, yeah, just try and stay away from farms. Farms have dogs, but it's good to know where they are. So I know there's a farm over there, so I might hear dogs barking from that direction, and I know a long way off over that way there's a farm. Car parks, where are you going to park your car? Now, one option is to find a village, and what I do is look at Street View and I find a village that has a sort of residential area where people park in front of their houses, and I park there. However, look at Street View to see if the houses look, you know, it's an area that my car isn't going to get broken into overnight. But you know, if there's a car that's parked out on the curb, you know, on the road, that no one knows whose car that is. It could be someone visiting someone else, so nobody knows. You don't draw any attention to yourself whatsoever. However, if you get seen getting out with a massive 100-litre rucksack on or Bergen on, then someone knows that you're up to something, and it's going to be fairly local. So that's maybe a reason not to do it. I found an obvious parking spot where you can fit another couple of cars. It's near some National Trust area where people go walking a lot, and people might sit and watch the sunset, you know, late at night, 10:30 at night. So it's not unusual for the car to be there. But I have parked just down over there. Should I tell you about this little story? Basically, a friend of mine, a work colleague stroke friend of mine, basically called the police on me. He was out shooting deer. I could hear his gunshots when I was out. Late at night, so it's still daylight, but the sun's just going down. He saw a car. He saw that my cap was in the back, and he thought someone's in trouble here. You know, a fellow military person is maybe in trouble, maybe lost in the woods, or something's going on. He phoned up the base. He phoned up the police. They found out who I was. They told him. He phoned me, and I said, I'm absolutely fine. I'm just walking through the woods. So he called off everyone, although as I walked back out, I then got my stuff together and left, and as I was walking out, there was a helicopter flying around, which on a Friday evening is definitely not a military helicopter, so it could well have been the police. So anyway, don't park your car somewhere that's odd and might raise suspicion. Right, I think I'll set up in a second, and I've got quite a weird setup which I'll show you, which yeah, you might want to comment on. Okay, so next things I think about are the weather. Quite obvious, wind. Wind hammocks in the woods, particularly not very well maintained woods, probably like these, is not a good idea. So wind is a bit of a no-no. On some of my videos, you will have seen me in woods where it's been quite windy. I did put a lot of thought into where I was and the sorts of trees that were around, and so there is risk that you take there. So wind, even if it's not windy in the woods, look at the top of the trees, and if they're rocking around a little bit, yeah, consider that, and remember that it may get windy overnight, particularly in the winter. The winds will rise at night, maybe they'll fall during the day, and particularly in high pressure, but yeah, they can rise. So just make sure you understand that. Temperature, yeah, but look at the temperature that it's forecast, but I always assume 5 degrees centigrade worse than that, and I add 2 degrees. I take off 2 degrees centigrade per 1,000 feet that I am up. So that's how I look at the temperature. And then finally, rain. Yeah, if it's going to rain, it's going to be muddy. If it's going to rain, what are you going to eat with? Are you going to use wood to light a fire? If that's what you're going to do, then do you know how to process wood so you can get the damp bark off and strip it and split it and process it so that you can still burn it? So think about those things, and it may just be the probability of rain. So tonight I definitely got no tarp because I know there's going to be no rain tonight, so definitely no tarp. Right, and the final bit before I'm going to set up is what you're going to eat. Think about what you're going to eat. Yeah, are you going to grill something? Are you going to boil something? Are you going to do a boil in the bag? Are you going to... So think about the kit you're obviously going to take, but also how you're going to cook it. Fire a proper open fire, as someone clearly has back over there. That brings its risks. So I'm on this property. I don't know who owns this property. I think it's the people who own the wood over there, but this section they pretty much leave alone as it is. I know the company are very open to people being out on the property and out on the woodland and exploring it, etc. So I don't know what their contact details are. I've looked at it before and I just can't find anything about them online. So yeah, it's tricky. But if you're going to light a fire on their property, you're now causing damage. So that fire damage that's down there, that has now gone from a civil matter to a criminal matter. So if you're going to do light a fire, and I don't think anyone would really be that bothered by a little fire there that's well managed and maintained and by someone who's paying attention and has got some water to put it out and is keeping it small and keeping it minimal, etc. If that's what you're doing, then yeah, I think people will probably turn a blind eye, but it's a risk that you have to take. So whenever you light a fire, you're now responsible for that fire, obviously, for tidying it up afterwards. Even if you are doing that and someone comes along, as soon as you've lit a fire, their attitude towards you is going to change dramatically. So if you just strung a hammock up and you're just chilling out in the hammock, as I could be in half an hour or so, then that's one thing. But lighting a fire, damaging their property, and also you're taking their wood. You know, if you're using the wood that's around, even if you're using it in a little wood burner like I'm going to do tonight, then you know you're using their property and you're burning it. I don't think anyone's going to really care about that particularly, but scarring the ground they certainly are. So if you're going to light a fire and that's going to be how you eat, then yeah, be prepared. You've now stepped over a line that you need to recognise as a risk to what you're doing. Okay, other options are gas. Gas is really simple. If you're the first time you're going to do it, then gas, I would suggest gas is the best way of doing it, but it's very noisy, so just consider that. Another option is alcohol. Yeah, alcohol is a pretty good way of doing it. If you've got a little alcohol burner, very quiet. You just got to be careful with the amount of alcohol that you bring with you. Just make sure, having used it before, make sure you know how long it's going to last and how much it's going to boil up the water. And if it's winter, gas may not work. Depends what sort of burner you've got and whether you could turn the cylinder upside down. Gas may not work. Alcohol is maybe a bit better in the winter. And then you could use a stove, a little firebox. Use a lot less wood. It's a lot more controlled. You can put it out really quickly. A lot harder for other people to see. Just more discreet and just better than an open fire. And let's face it, an open fire is the nicest way of doing it, but yeah, having a firebox is the smarter way of doing it. And then finally, you can use solid fuel. And solid fuel, haven't used it a hell of a lot. Used it a bit on things at work, but yeah, it's good. Just use it beforehand so you know how much fuel you need to be taking. But they are very simple, very discreet. Okay, I'm at my normal spot now, so I normally go from that tree over to that tree over there. But I think someone else has been here because there are some other logs. So that there is a stump that's been burnt. I would never do something like that. That there has been burnt one end. You know, I throw all my stuff. Once I've doused it all down, I discard it. So I think someone else has been out here. And I think you'll find that a lot of, I know where I am now, so I'm going to start heading back. I think you'll find that there's a lot of blokes, groups of blokes, who go out into the woods, and this is what they do. You know, they don't necessarily go to the pub. There's quite a lot of people that I know now who come out as a group of blokes, and they just come out and have a bit of a social and a chat, and you know, yeah, I don't know. Is it taking us back to our roots? I don't know. It seems to be a bit of a thing. If you look online, there's quite a few people who do it. So I'm going to go and stick with this one here. It's actually pretty good, and it's a reasonable distance in from the main. I can see the trail there. There's some sun coming through, so if someone did walk through, I could probably see it. I'm not going to have any big fire or anything like that, so not too worried. Little wooden stove thing. Right, here's my setup. I'll talk you through it. Get that down there first. Right, so these are the cocoon, no, sorry, not cocoon, these are the hummingbird straps. 1-inch straps, not my favourite, I prefer the 2-inch straps. But yeah, so round, then into a whoopee sling. And then with this Hummingbird setup, you've got this sort of button configuration, and it works well. The whole thing takes, I think, 350 pounds, so about 181 kilograms. There you go. So that is, yeah, gathered in, obviously gathered in hammock. I don't know what material this is, but it's fairly see-through. It's about 20 denier. It's not the same as the Cocoon, it's their own stuff. I have added a ridge line myself because I like to get that just right. And you'll notice that there is no, even though you may think there is no underquilt. So this is pretty thin. Now you need an underquilt or some sort of, excuse me, protection from the cold air. Not that there is any cold air, but if the temperature is below plus 20 degrees centigrade, then I know from experience that that I need some sort of protection. Okay, so this is what I've gone for. This is a wind protector, so an underquilt protector. Also helps against the wind. I've also then got some reflective, one of those survival tinfoil things under there. There's my Hummingbird bag hanging, and all the bags from all of this lot are all just hanging in there. And there we go. And then inside there I've got my Snug Pack jungle bag, which has a mozzie net built into the there. If I really need it, I can zip myself in. Got a pillow just for what the hell, and there you go. So I'm hoping that this will just stop any air getting under there to whisk any heat away from me, and that will give me a little bit of extra protection. I mean, the temperature is coming down to plus 15. Some people don't need an underquilt. Some people are, plus 15, and I'll be absolutely fine. And I think I don't even need that foil under there. If I'm honest, I think that wind protector will do it. So it's a really simple system for me tonight. Got my little table up and my mat down there, and I'm quite late now. It's 7:30 and I haven't started getting any wood, but I'm just using a bush box, which I had in the last video, except this time it's the bigger one. It's the titanium version, which I'll be setting myself up for fairly soon. So that's my setup tonight, but I'll show you my semi bug protection. There we go. So I've had this camouflage for a couple of years now. I just used it with my brother once we went out somewhere along a river bank, and we had a boat, and we had a couple of these on. I took one of them home, but yeah, I was going to leave that over there. I was kind of toggled it onto the top end with the bag, and then I can just push it back. But if it becomes a little bit buggy, I can just pull it back over me, and I've camouflaged myself, and I've got some bit of bug protection maybe. But yeah, anyway, it's I just thought I'd try it. Rather bulky to bring out though. One thing I didn't mention that I wrote down to mention was, whenever you're going to do something like this, particularly on your own, particularly given that there's risks around, I can just see some widowmakers over there, etc. You are taking a little bit of a risk. You minimize it as much as you can, and you move on, but you don't let that stop you doing everything. You just got to be careful and accept that risk. But tell someone where you're going. I think I might have mentioned it, but what I use is something called What 3 Words. So it's 3 words, as long as they know I'm in the UK. What 3 words? Like 3 words basically that I go on the app, and I share my location with my wife, and I send that to her whenever I get to a location. If ever there was any problem, she can go onto the emergency services and say, right, I've got a location with what 3 words. She says what the 3 words are. They then confirm, okay, I believe that is in such and such wood. Is that correct? Yes. And they'll know exactly where I am. Okay, been banished to the other side of the hammock. That side is where the sun is, and so all the flies are congregating over there. So it's just me and the poison ivy over here. So I'll get the little stove going, get some food on. So the two bags that I always take out, these two. It's my fire lighting, the green one. It's got pretty much everything in there, from flint and steel, literally flint and steel, to the magnesium ferrule rods, to lighters, to waterproof matches, to a little bit of tinder, to little bellows and all sorts of stuff just for helping getting the fire going. This one's got all the cooking stuff in it. It's got a little spork if I ever forgot to take a spork. It's got my little hot fingers thing. It's got washing up liquid. It's got oil. It's got and even a little hook for hanging a pot over a fire. It's got it's got its own little lighter. It's got a gas burner. It's got some water purification. It's got everything, a whole load of stuff in there. And then I've got a yellow one which is sort of toiletries and medicines and things like that. And then I've got a red one which is my first aid, which always stays in the bag and in the top there. Right then, let's get it on. Okay, so this is the Bushcraft Essentials wood burner. It's the bigger titanium one, which is grand. Absolutely brilliant. Oops, brilliant bits of kit. Only use this one a couple of times. I often just generally go for the steel one. It's the same weight as this, although it's smaller, but it just takes up a little bit less room. But this one seems to be a little bit more warped. Yeah, there we go. And I think titanium just warps a little bit more. What I was hoping to do tonight was to do flint and steel, because I've been practicing that and actually had some quite good success with it, but it takes me a little bit of time and I don't have time. It's now 8 o'clock and I still haven't even lit this to have something to eat. So yeah, I have to be a little bit careful. I don't think it's been quite so vicious, but my underquilt protector there is at risk. I wonder if I can move this a little bit. This could go badly. Let's stick it over there. That's a bit better. Yeah, it's quite stealthy, isn't it? I'm quite liking that. I think if you were right back over here and just looking around, if they didn't have all those bags there, which I'll sort out later, and me talking to the camera, then I think it'd be quite stealthy. I quite like the idea, although I'm not sure how well I'll sleep under there, but I think I'll probably be pulling it off. All the bugs are sort of thinning out now. Now the sun has gone down, there's not really any bugs. They sort of go to ground. There we go, fire is going okay. Got a little bit of extra wood on there, ready to go, but I'm just going to let that cook down. But yeah, it's moist. Some of that is just bubbling away, that you can see the water coming up through the grain. It's terrible, but as long as I get that really hot and I can get my burger done. And well, pretty camo, everything except my stuff out. But tonight, all this stuff will go into a green bag, which will go under me into that green bag there. So all that stuff goes into there. And then I got my bag up here, and I've got a waterproof cover, which is camo, go over that. So tonight, or certainly for this morning, I'll be pretty camoed up. But let's be honest, I'm not particularly camo at the moment. I'm just standing around, but I know there's no one really around here. If I was that much, if it was that risky for a biscuit, I would put all that lot away and just pop round there, and I wouldn't have a fire going. But there's no one really around here, other than me and the poison ivy. I think some of these are quite wet, or still a bit green from that limb that had fallen off the ash tree. I wouldn't be coming here in any sort of wind. Right, for tonight then, for food, not that impressive, but actually quite a clever idea, and it's going to be late, is a Rustler's burger. So there's two burgers in there, there's a slice of cheese, there's a bun, It's all together. You don't have to go out and buy a load of buns, 4 burgers, etc. It's all together in a wanna. This is a really clever idea. Why didn't I think of this before? I've actually got 2 of them, so I'll have one tonight, and I may have one for breakfast. Hello. Yeah, what I'd mention is, so this is the little aluminium thing I've got. It's good for a plate. It comes with a little grabber. Personally, I'm a fan of aluminium if you're going to do any cooking. And then 2 other things that I've got that I am really fond of are these 2 grates. I got them for bike packing. Well, this one here particularly for bike packing, so you can get a small fire going, or a hexi burner or something, and then you've got a stand. You can put it on some twigs, on some logs rather. And it's got a bigger one that comes with as well. So these, I take these out quite often if I'm not going to take my big grill out. They're just a good way to do meat and things like that if you're going to chuck them on the fire. But because that one doesn't come with a grill, oops, then that thing will just go over the top and do my burger on. There we go, that's the grill on there. There we go. So I'm just going to take out a burger, chuck that on there, take the other burger out, chuck that on there. I've got the cheese ready to go. They're going to cook slowly, and I guess this will work. I don't know. If it does work, it's going to be one of my new favourites. Although I should have let them calm down a little bit. So now it's just going to burn. Okay, just getting some char cloth going. Yeah, that burger was not a disaster. I think it's a great idea, but I dropped the cheese on the floor. The burger got a little bit burnt, and I forgot to put the sauce on. So, but I've got another one, so it's a great idea. I'm going to carry that forward. The sun is just about going down now. I'm just watching a film, having another beer. But I'm impressed with my camouflage hammock. I bloody love it. It's a shame about everything else that's blatting out where I am. Anyway, I'm going to go and have a reasonably early night, finish watching this film, and I'll see you in the morning and tell you what I think of the hammock and see if I'm warm enough. Well, that was a crap night's sleep. I think not having the mosquito thing was hacking me off, because I could hear mozzies around me buzzing around wanting to come in, and then occasionally they'd get in through the camouflage into my ear hole. doing my head in. So I slept until about 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was it. Wide awake, and then the crescendo of buzzing started. I can just hear it, hear it now. Yeah, but the hammock itself was far more comfortable, I think, than the cocoon. That Hummingbird, being at 11 foot, somehow it gives in the right places. It just feels a lovely hammock to sleep in, really comfy. But it doesn't have that mozzie net. Bit of a shame. If it had the mozzie net and then with a camo over it, then fantastic. The other thing, which I tried last night, was the wind protector and that foil to try and keep some warmth. And the temperature last night went down to plus 14 degrees centigrade, and that was toasty. What I tested was a little, just by pushing the whole lot away from me. One side definitely started feeling a bit chilly. As soon as I pulled it back up again, it was great. So I don't know if it's the wind protector itself or if it's that foil material that's holding the heat in. Either way, it's a really good lightweight option in the winter when you just want to get just below that plus 20 degrees centigrade, down to plus 15. It worked beautifully. So yeah, I was really impressed with it. Anyhow, packed up real quick there, as you saw. So I thought last night, right, I'm going to set everything up to pack away as quickly as I can in the morning, so that if I get rumbled in the night, then I could pack it up and just see how quickly I could do it in. And there you go. That was a couple of minutes. Get your shoes on, chuck some stuff in. There is some little things in there, like the little holder I have for the phone, so I can watch a film in the evening. So it's a bit of a pain putting that away after you get into bed. But I can lean down. I can just put it into my rucksack without any big deal. But probably a good way to go. Anyway, he's got the fire, the little wood burner to sort out, because that's one thing I didn't. I would just pick that up and walk out with that. But just going to tidy that away properly and make sure that's all doused down, and then head out. Right, let's go. Right, that's me complete. 5:45, all packed up and out. Normally I make sure when I go to bed that I've got everything pretty much sorted so I can get up and out fairly quickly. But I thought last night I'll just go a little bit of extra effort to make sure that I'm not obvious if anyone did walk past with a torch. Discreet as possible, and that I'm as ready as possible to move, just to see how quickly I could get out of there. And yeah, I reckon 2 or 3 minutes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed or got something from the video. That's how I do my planning if I'm going to come into the woods of the UK, and the things I think about before I'm going to come into the woods, and then once I get into the woods, what I'm looking for, etc. But yeah, I really quite enjoyed it, although I did not sleep particularly well because of all the bugs and my lack of mozzie net. Although that hammock is really comfy, and I really like the system of having the wind protector with the survival blanket foil thing in there as well. Lovely and warm, really good little setup. I will remember that. Anyway, see you next time.